At that point, dude, get the shredders. Like, this is not good. Like early in my career, I would just try to blind people with my science, like fact there, number there, bam, 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 bam. And then it would just be like a silent room.
I would have some confidence in the analysis that I ran, right? And like what the number said, and like, did I make a cool chart based on that? But anything outside of that hyper-specific thing I worked on, it was like, please don't ask me about this.
If the only compliment somebody says about you is that guy is really smart or that girl is really smart, that's not good. Essentially saying like, we're becoming too big to fail. And that immediately made my spidey senses go off, that a private company burning billions of dollars a year is saying we are too big to fail.
To their credit, we probably would get into a recession if they failed. I mean, this is a lot of money, like 1.4 trillion in infrastructure commitments. Like that's the size of a country's economy. Shopify actually had the most employees they've ever had in 2022. So since then, 2022 to 2025, they now have 30% fewer employees, but they have double the revenue.
That's a cool takeaway.
Nice takeaway for the finance nerds out there who care about efficiency.
You're the people's champ, Kyle.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyar and CFO CJ Gustafson share smart takes on growing revenue and running a company, pricing, unit economics, AI, leadership, candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, and CROs, or anyone else aspiring to climb to the C-suite. This is Mostly Growth.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. As a CFO, you're expected to bring clarity to everything, including how your company manages ownership. The tools you use should make that easier, not harder. But when they come with hidden fees, data you can't always trust, and support you can't rely on, you end up with more frustration than clarity. That's where Pulley comes in. Pulley is a cap table management platform built for finance leaders who need accurate, decision-ready data from a system that works for your business, not against it. With Pulley, you get intuitive workflows, audit-ready reporting, and support you can count on, all backed by predictable pricing you can plan around. So you can stay compliant and make smarter decisions about your company's future. Manage everything from fundraise modeling to ASC 718 reporting to custom liquidity programs, all on one trusted platform. Hundreds of high-growth companies like Linear, Fathom, and Runway trust Pulley to help turn ownership into a strategic advantage. And joining them is now easier than ever. You can switch to Pulley in as little as 5 days. And for a limited time, they're offering 25% off your first year. To claim your exclusive offer, visit pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is PULLEY.com/mostlymetrics. Please, guys, I really need this. Pulley.com/mostlymetrics. You just launched a new AI product. The new pricing page looks great. I'm talking crisp. But behind it, last-minute glued code, messy spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries to figure out what to bill. Customers get invoices they can't understand. Engineers are chasing billing bugs. Finance can't close the books. Well, with Metronome, you hand it all off to the real-time billing infrastructure that just works. Reliable, flexible, and built to grow with you. They turn raw usage events into accurate invoices, give customers bills they actually understand, and keep every team in sync in real time. Whether you're launching usage-based pricing, managing enterprise contracts, or rolling out new AI services, Metronome does the heavy lifting so you can focus on your product, not your billing. That's why some of the fastest growing companies in the world like OpenAI and Anthropic run their billing on Metronome. Visit metronome.com to learn more. That's metronome.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Mostly Growth. And CJ, it looks like you're in your studio today. I thought you were going to be in Florida.
I didn't know this because I live under a rock. Apparently the government is shut down.
Well, it depends on when listeners are catching this, but I think not for much longer, hopefully.
We went to the airport, 2 kids in tow, pregnant wife. We go through security and stuff. And anyone who has kids, you know how like it's an act of God just to get them to the airport with all the stuff. Like, I don't know how they have so much stuff. And we got there and we're like, oh, this is weird. All 3 flights ahead of us are delayed. And then they announced that air traffic control is going to be not controlling the traffic up until at least 4 p.m. that day when the new shift would come in. And that's where, like, I think the writing on the wall is we were just not meant to go anywhere today. So, of course, we got dropped off at the airport. So I had to take an Uber back to our house and then drive back and pick them all up with car seats and stuff. But it could have been worse, you know?
Oh, I'm sure that was fun. How long were you stuck at the airport total for?
We were there long enough to spend approximately $60 on snacks that should have cost $15.
And probably another 30 on iced coffee.
Yes, actually, I spent at least $10 on iced coffee. And my 4-year-old was fascinated by this vending machine. So she kept making me get her juice boxes out of it. And I didn't notice it was like $3.50 a juice box. So I think I racked up, I don't know. We were just a captive audience there to spend money. I crushed 3 cronuts. One was mine, 2 belonged to my small children. So I left the airport kind of bummed out, but very full.
Now, I do have to ask you, do you have your daughter like carry her own stuff? Like, does she have like a tiny little suitcase that she wheels around?
Dude, this is so funny you ask. Yes, they each have these tiny little Peppa Pig backpack rolly bags, but they don't have anything of use or value. Like if we were on a deserted island, you'd open it up and you'd be like, you just have outfits for a doll that you didn't bring. So yes, they wheel their own bags. It's just full of whatever shit they could find in the house to throw in there.
That always cracks me up in line at security when you just see these kids with bags that can hold like a piece of paper in them and that's it. And you're like, you know, the parents are like, oh, you can pack whatever you want that fits in there. Meanwhile, they're going to pack what the kids actually need. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to carry like the useful things, but they love the process of packing up bags. Like this is where I knew that YouTube had like Eclipse cable television. They want to watch kids packing up bags more than they want to watch. Yeah, this is the thing. Kids packing up suitcases to go on vacation. My daughter also watches this show where it's kids playing with toys and they're playing pack up for vacation. It's this mind-blowing thing that has hundreds of millions of views. This is the world we live in.
Just have them take that energy and apply it to cleaning the room, and you'll be golden.
It's harder.
Just gotta start like queuing up to the playlist videos of kids cleaning up their room, kids sweeping, kids doing chores.
All right, Ben, what should we talk about first today?
Well, Lord knows that I'm mostly the former, but I want to know, what's the best thing to be? Would you rather be right or would you rather be useful?
Well, it's a great question. What prompted this is that Sarah Charlton from Growth Systems wrote a great newsletter with the title called From Being Right to Being Useful. And I felt so seen with that because I think so many times I'm like just focused on, am I right in that situation? And it really doesn't matter most of the time. But CJ, would you rather be right or be useful?
I think there's also a derivative of this, of when people are just trying to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, and it's not actually useful what they're telling you. They're just kind of being an asshole.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. The evolution I think people go through at work and that everyone needs to kind of learn over time is that when you're junior, you're the one who's like doing the analysis. The numbers have to be right. You've got to know the methodology. You've got to know the footnote on slide 67 if you're in banking, and you got to spell check that, right? So it's all hinging on, are you accurate in that specific thing that you're doing? And then over time, like the altitudes of communication start to change. You're not at like the ground floor. You've got to communicate to people in a way that influences them. And it doesn't actually matter like what that footnote says, or is that data 100% accurate on the slide? It's, are you talking in a way that the other person can understand, and can you actually change their mind about something?
My favorite part of this piece was the communication aspect, because like early in my career, I would just try to blind people with my science, like fact there, number there, bam, 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 bam. And then it'd just be like a silent room. And I'd be like, wow, I must have like really impressed them there. But then I noticed that the people that I was presenting to were 2 or 3 levels above me. And they're probably sitting there like, okay, you could have just read me like the Red Sox starting lineup batting average. I don't really know what to do with those numbers. And you have to elevate it, to your point, Kyle, to packaging it into something that they can digest and then use it for something.
I think just about everyone has to kind of decide on a path in their career too. Like, do you go down the path of being the subject matter expert who knows more about this like hyper specific thing than anyone else? Or do you go down the path of being like a people manager, an exec, a leader? There really are like two roads that diverge, because if you're the subject matter expert, you got to be right and you've got to know about this hyper specific thing. If you're the manager, it really doesn't matter, and like you're actually better off not getting into the details. If you have a team you can delegate stuff to.
Yeah. And I felt like in this piece, I don't know if she intended it to be that way, but I kept substituting the word useful for impactful. Like, would you rather be right, factually correct, subject matter correct, or would you rather be impactful with whatever decision you're helping people get to?
So CJ, do you have to decide between these paths, the subject matter expert or the manager? But then if you choose the manager path, which I think, 80% of people end up going down that path, they start managing people, they start trying to move up in the org. And it's really difficult to get from like manager to director to VP to C-level. You did that and you actually got to C-level at like a really young age. How did you get promoted? And what would you tell the aspiring CJ out there?
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I keep coming back to this comment that this guy, Austin Martin, I used to work for, who is incredibly smart and useful, used to say. And that's, if somebody can say, if the only compliment somebody says about you is that guy is really smart or that girl is really smart, that's not good, because it means like they couldn't draw it to some sort of impact within the org or the capability to use your smart with something. It's like they're just using that adjective because they don't know else where to take it. So I'm probably butchering it, but he used to always say, like, if the nicest thing or the best compliment someone can give about someone on your team is that they're really smart, that they need to go further in order to get to the next level. And so my path to being promoted was, I would always figure out who my customer was at the company. And what I meant by that is, who's the one person I'm trying to make look exceptionally good every day. And what I would do is just maniacally think about, in my day, how could I take the next hour and put it towards making their day easier? And then identifying the things that they hated to do. Like, oh, they hate pulling stuff from the cap table and doing this report for investors. Like, I will do that every single quarter. And so for me, it was honing in on using what I was somewhat smart at to be as useful as possible to make the person in front of me look good, because I knew that when it came to promotion time, I would speak up for myself, which is something that I also encourage people to do. Like, if you want a promotion, you should be extremely upfront about it, not in like an obnoxious or I'm better than other people way, but just be clear that that's what you want. And I would bring it up then. And I think they would think back to all the times that I made their day better.
See, it's interesting because I think I ended up going down the different path between the two of us. And maybe it's because I spent so much time in consulting and then venture where, it's just smaller organizations. But I ended up just trying to learn as much as I could to then be like a domain expert in different topics, and then try to actually take the extra time I had. And instead of being useful to, maybe other constituents at my company and take work off their plate, I was like, let me take this domain knowledge that I just have and like, let me get this out there. Let me post about it on LinkedIn. Let me write about it. I started writing, I was in consulting and I started writing a study when I was like 23 years old that ended up getting picked up by like The Guardian and other news outlets. And I just like leaned into that expertise and trying to use the expertise to, be bigger than I was externally. It's a like totally different path. It ended up working in a different way, but like not in the way that it worked for you.
Did you ever have some imposter syndrome about this larger than life appearance online and then you being in the moment still trying to figure stuff out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was endless. I would have some confidence in the analysis that I ran, right? And like what the number said, and like, did I make a cool chart based on that? But anything outside of that hyper specific thing I worked on, it was like, please don't ask me about this.
Yeah. I often felt that way because people would say, oh, you got to CFO at a really young age. So for context, I was a CFO at 31. And people would assume, see, you must what do I do about this interest rate thing that I'm having in treasury? I'm like, dude, I don't know that from a doorknob, to be honest. Like, I was just trying to be as useful as possible in any situation they threw me into. I was not trying to go deep to be the guy who could write 1,000 pages on it, which is kind of funny because if you look at what I've written about, a lot of it is...
now you're becoming that guy.
Yeah, like it's come full circle. Now I am... Now I'm going the other path. I literally just realized that right now.
Well, I'm looking forward to your 1,000 pages on interest rates. It's due tomorrow.
Coming out this Tuesday.
Next up, we're going to talk about what separates a good VP of sales from a great VP of sales.
Now, CJ, I don't know why you put this in. Isn't this easy? A great VP of sales hits their number. Good VP of sales doesn't. Like, what am I missing?
Sell, sell, sell. Coffee is for closers. So I just had a great conversation with Sam Jacobs. He is the founder of Pavilion, which is, I think by any measure, the largest go-to-market leadership organization or community that's out there. And, I come at this from the CFO angle, having worked alongside a lot of great CROs. And I think that like when you find a really good head of sales, you just kind of know it, especially if you're in the planning process, like a lot of people are right now. And I asked Sam, you've dealt with thousands of VPs of sales and CROs. What separates the good ones from the great ones? And he hit me with this quote, Kyle. He said, I think the best sales leaders could have been CFOs. And at first I thought he was just like placating to the audience and he was kind of pulling my leg there. But we went a little bit deeper. He said, well, who's the master resource allocator at your company? And it was kind of a trick question, honestly. It's the guy or girl holding a bag. It's that sales leader. Because if you go through the P&L at tech companies, the majority of the costs are people, and the most concentrated and expensive group of people are the sales folks. And so we dove a bit deeper, and he was saying what we try to teach in Pavilion is how to connect the company's overall finances to revenue. Okay. And so I'm curious if that lands with you.
I think that does happen at mature companies, and especially when you're managing like SMB, mid-market, enterprise, multiple geo, like a PLG motion, enterprise motion. There's so many resource decisions, and even like what type of lead to give to what rep. Should you give it to the rep that has domain experience, industry experience, like size of company experience? Everything is a trade-off, and also figuring out efficiency. Like, should you take this lead, or is it not worth your time to take this lead? And so I do think a great VP of sales like kind of gets that intuitively. One thing I found interesting is, looking at who ends up getting promoted to CEO. So like a lot of CEOs are just the founder of the company.
Number one path.
But then when you have someone hired as CEO from the outside, it's almost always one of two people, a former CFO or a former CRO. And so there's something there.
I don't know the exact stats, but the number one path to be a professional CEO is coming from the sales side. So being a CRO. And Sam hit me with this line on the podcast. He said, your job is not to look like you played linebacker at Bucknell and recruit a bunch of lacrosse players. You are a capital allocator, and your job is to earn a return on behalf of that capital that's deployed, one that will meet the parameters of the business that you work for. It's not to hire people. It's to produce results with the people you hire. There's a subtle difference. And that one kind of hit me with a ton of bricks because it's something that like I've always internalized as a CFO, but you have to develop as a sales leader this theory of enterprise value. And Ethan Schechter, who I worked with at Sneak, VP of sales, he brought them from over 0 to 100 million. I think you've met him, Kyle. He was always one of my favorite people to work with because he understood the value of a dollar that we were trying to put out there into the ecosystem, especially if it was linked to a human. And what he could also trace back was if we close, say, $100,000 deal and we're trading at 10x forward revenue, congrats, we just added $1 million in enterprise value to the company. And I know I'm using a shorthand there, but what I'm trying to express is it's not just about hitting your quota. It's about using the dollars you have on the P&L to fuel future growth and increase your valuation.
Yeah, I do think these sales leaders can be ruthless. Like if you meet anyone in the organization that has fired the most people, like it is the VP of sales, and they almost like take emotion out of it. It is objective. Did people hit their number or not? If they didn't, do they have a path to hit their number next quarter? And it's almost as if, not that it's coin operated, but they have such an intense focus on both the top line and the bottom line number of what they're doing. That's impressive. Although it can be a little ruthless at times. It is such a different experience from other like softer sides of the company.
There is no better leader in the org at firing people than a sales leader. And I've met some that can also do it in a way that isn't ruthless, but just incredibly efficient and straight to the point, but still humanizing. Where I have ran into problems with sales leaders in the past is when they don't even understand that, oh, we're running a spiff that has a cost to the organization, and that needs to be contemplated. Oh, we can't have a fully blended commission rate that goes from 18 to 25% because it just won't work with what we're trying to accomplish here. That there's a certain gross margin profile and a certain lifetime value calculation that goes on to determine the reward that's the outlay back to reps. And those are the ones that I think don't get to that next level, but they may hit their quota within that quarter and within that year. But I've realized that with sales leaders, there's truly levels to this game.
The other thing with a lot of sales leaders is that there's like their people and the cost of like the P&L that they control, which they also get compensated, right? If they hit the number. And then there's like everyone else that supports them. And many like mediocre sales leaders end up like just they just take up all of the time from anyone that they can get their hands on. It's like, oh, you're a product expert. You're going to join these sales calls. You're an ops person. You're going to be doing these, 15 things. You're in finance. You're now our deal desk. And there's this like tax that happens on the rest of the organization because everyone is supporting them, but not technically part of their P&L. I think a great VP or CRO can actually be great at simplifying, and they take help from other parts of the organization, but they don't become like a drain on every other function.
And don't get me wrong, it can go the other way too. So I don't want to just crap on the bad sales leaders. Finance, there are a ton of terrible CFOs out there, Kyle, and they can be a huge part of the problem. So for example, if I'm building a finance model where my primary input is how many salespeople I can hire, and that's just not the reality of how the company generates demand, where we're a PLG or we're a channel organization where we sell through intermediaries, then I'm definitely the problem for sure. I just took the easiest route to building a model, which technically is right, without thinking through the physics of how we sell and to whom.
I recently wrote a post about why your pricing model is broken. I'm pretty sure we need to do the same thing with you and like why your C-level hire is broken. Up next time on the podcast.
All this and much, much more after CBS's hit show Tracker.
Well, there's probably going to be a Michael Burry reference in here somewhere. I know a lot of that. One of my favorite movies, Big Short. But OpenAI, is it too big to fail? That's what I want to know.
Now, CJ, I have a question for you.
What?
Is it a good sign if the CFO says, don't worry, the government can always backstop us?
At that point, dude, get the shredders. Like, this is not good.
Walk me through what happened with OpenAI and just walk me through it.
So we all know that there are a ton of public company stocks, the likes of Oracle and many others, who have a lot of good stuff going on, but a lot of that share price or enterprise value is propped up on the expectations of what AI can deliver, and more specifically, the contracts that OpenAI can deliver. And so OpenAI this year, I think they're going to do $20 billion in revenue, if I don't have that wrong. That's great, right? But the contracts that they have secured and the CapEx investments that they're going to have to make in order to produce the future revenues that everybody else is propped up on is like value of like 1.4 trillion. So I can't make the math on how you possibly get to that. So then I think some people have started to ask questions like, well, what happens if this fails? And there started to be a couple of not so subtle comments from both Sam Altman, the CEO, and Sarah Fryer, the CFO, essentially saying like, we're becoming too big to fail. And that immediately made my spidey senses go off, that a private company burning billions of dollars a year is saying we are too big to fail. We're now in potentially a market cycle where I don't know if it's a level of arrogance that we're getting to, or just such a deep, heavy circular reference that private companies are saying, we must be too big to fail at this point.
Well, I do have to ask you, do you think they're too big to fail?
No, I think it's a free market economy where, like, they're not a bank. Like, a bank has a fiduciary responsibility to people that put their money in. This is a venture where investors are putting their money in to hopefully earn a risk-adjusted return. Do I think every single bank should be bailed out? No, but like it's a kind of an apples to oranges comparison. I think they're very important to like GDP growth in a lot of ways, good, bad, or indifferent. But I think we've all seen what happens too when you prop something up longer than it should have the right to exist on its own.
Yeah, I think AI investments have really been driving GDP growth over at least the last year. But it feels like between OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini, Meta, like there's enough alternatives out there from a like customer perspective that it feels to me like it's not too big to fail. But it's an interesting question of like, how does that even get defined in the first place?
And I just didn't know where the comment came from. Does that mean that they're nervous that something could go wrong and like, hey, we need an insurance policy here, wink and a nod? Or is it that they've just been living in this bubble for so long that they truly do think that it would be bad for Western civilization if OpenAI went away? And they did walk back some of the comments. I just thought it was a really aggressive take on the significance of a for-profit private company.
Yeah, no, I hear that. But to their credit, we probably would get into a recession if they failed. I mean, this is a lot of money, like 1.4 trillion in infrastructure commitments. Like that's the size of a country's economy, like a big country's economy, right?
Oh yeah, I think like Norway only has like a $300 billion GDP. It's
So it's like 5 Norways.
something like that.
Well, I think this goes back to what we've talked about in the past, where I mean, this is fueling a ton of economic growth, but a lot of it is tied to investments that are not like railroads, where if you overinvest now, you've got all this infrastructure you can keep using in the future. I think the big question for me is like, how long lasting are these infrastructure investments? And if it's infrastructure that gets outdated in 3 or 4 years and needs to be replaced, that doesn't actually create that much benefit for society. But if it is like railroads and we're over-investing now, maybe it's a bubble, but we're left with a railroad connecting New York and LA or San Francisco, like it's pretty good for society.
Yeah, and for all the accounting nerds out there, I think one of the most fascinating things to read with some of the AI companies going public, like a CoreWeave, is what they define as the useful life of the chips they're using. Because remember, they're also securitizing these chips to take out loans against them as assets. And so if you stretch out the useful life longer, you can ostensibly say we can take out more loans against it. We have basically a longer runway on these assets, but it also impacts how much you can depreciate each year. And then that comes around on the P&L for either higher or lower profits. So there's a lot of accounting games going on here. And then there's actually the physics of reality of, can we build up these things in time? And if we can't, do some of these companies deserve to be bailed out? Or is it less about deserving it and us actually fundamentally being in a place as an economy where we, right, wrong, or indifferent, we need to be bailed out?
We make this podcast for the folks, and if they're not familiar already, CJ and Kyle are both prolific writers. So what have you guys been working on lately? What do you want to share with the class?
Well, CJ, I hear you've been having some fun with Agentic Finance. I don't really know what that means, but I think you're going to tell us about it.
I emerged from the wilderness with 59 pages of PowerPoint slides and a herniated disc.
In sciatica.
In sciatica. My gout is acting up again after producing this report. So I interviewed a series of founders and executives from companies like RightRev, Numeric, Tropic, NetSuite, and Tabs to produce, hey, what's going on in the finance stack right now when it comes to AI? And where do you actually need AI? And where is what I'm calling rules-based logic okay? And so there's a ton of agent washing that's going on out there. It's kind of going back to the term greenwashing, when companies act like they're doing good stuff for the environment. This is like when, hey, it's agentic, it'll do everything for you. But really, it's just basically like either a PDF scanner or a fancy chatbot. And so what I did was dig into what's going on across all different layers of the stack, from FP&A tools to core accounting systems like ERPs to invoicing and billing. And what came out of it are 13 market maps that I'm pretty proud of, and which inevitably people will yell at me online because no one's ever happy with the results of a market map.
Yeah, I've never been yelled at more than by not including a pre-seed company in my market map. There's always one of them.
A couple of companies that approached me and they're like, why are we in that quadrant. We are for the largest of enterprise. And I'm like, bro, you have 2 customers and you've been around for 9 calendar months. So I can't put you there. I'm sorry, but I love what you're making. I love the effort. But yeah, no one's ever like, thank you for where you put me in a market map. There's always something wrong with it.
Maybe just one takeaway for readers, like what's the number one thing that most finance orgs don't automate, but they should be using like an agentic finance stack to automate?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. So I used to have a lot of wasted cycles when it came to procurement with just getting the requests up and running. Now, you still need a human in the loop to make the final negotiation and go or no go if you want to purchase it, and also say, is this within budget? But I think there are a lot of tools out there. So Tropic is one of the sponsors of the report, and they will help you spin up the requisitions, which to me have always been the biggest pain in the ass, but you need to do it in order to show the auditability of the workflows of who wanted what, and then to say, was this even in budget? And then they also take out a lot of the grunt work around how do I get the right numbers to feel comfortable with purchasing this? So I think there's a lot that's going on in procurement. I know you asked for one, but I'll give you one more. When it comes to looking through contracts for complicated or co-termed SaaS deals with multiple products, I had always struggled with making sure there wasn't any revenue leakage from period to period. So the ability to take vast amounts of data that are locked in documents, locked in emails, locked in different places, and get them into one core source of truth for that, I think is great. And Tabs is innovating in that space. But if you want to check out all the market maps and some of the stuff you actually don't need AI for, which I guess I'm zigging when others are zagging, then I would download the report.
Nice. Well, on my end, we released the 2025 SaaS Benchmarks report. This is something I launched at OpenView in 2017. It's one of the first things I did at OpenView is I kept getting asked from my portfolio CEOs like you, hey, what's a typical growth rate for a company my size? How much your company's investing in marketing? What's the typical headcount in engineering? It was getting so many questions about it. And I had only data from public companies, but no data from like smaller private companies. And so started running this report. It's now in its 9th year with about 5,000 respondents total, which is just like wild.
Do you say 5,000?
And we just dropped the report.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of companies have participated. And so the like time series data is really great. A couple of takeaways for folks that are interested. In general, like we've heard that this is a big year of change and disruption and transformation and AI, blah, 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 blah. But when I looked at like what's good and great for things like growth rate, CAC payback periods, net revenue retention, et cetera, the numbers are actually like quite similar to last year, which was quite similar to the year before. And so I think the big thing is like we're talking about everything changing a lot, but the metrics haven't changed all that much. So you're not getting outdated as fast as you might think. There's a lot of good data. I think the full report's like over 60 pages. It's a lot.
Kyle, I skimmed through the report, and what struck me is a lot of companies have growth rates a lot lower than the headlines in the news. It's only if you're going at 500% year over year do you seem to get a TechCrunch headline these days, but it's just not the reality of what's out there. And also, net dollar retention rates, the same story as last year. It's the best growth lever, but it's the hardest to keep up.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, if you only read TechCrunch or listen to VC podcasts, companies should be hitting 100 million ARR in 1 year or they're not fundable. But just to put that in perspective for folks, the top quartile growth rate, so what the top 25% of companies were doing in the survey, at sub-million ARR was 300% growth. At 1 to 5 million ARR, top quartile was 100% year-on-year growth. At 5 to 20 million ARR, it's 70% growth. So below that triple, double framing. And then from 20 to 50 million ARR, top quartile is only 40% growth. So if you're, at that 30, 40, 50% growth, you're not doing something wrong. That's actually what, even the top quartile are doing for that size.
That's the number that hit me the hardest, Kyle, the 30 to 40% growth for companies that are approaching what you would hope to be pre-IPO scale within the next 18 months. That I was like, that's actually what's going on. Let's be real about it.
Yeah, it hasn't changed that much. I mean, there's some AI companies that are breaking the norm, but in general, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think the other thing I do want to share, so growth rates have been remarkably stable the last couple of years. but companies are doing that with many fewer employees than they had before. And so an example that Jason Lemkin from SaaStr had shared was that Shopify actually had the most employees they've ever had in 2022. So since then, 2022 to 2025, they now have 30% fewer employees, but they have double the revenue. My quick math says that the ARR per employee essentially tripled during that period. So they're now generating about 1.3 million in ARR per employee, which is like wildly more efficient. And so I think that is actually one of the trends that has changed a lot over the last couple of years, is that growth rates have stabilized, but team sizes have actually gone down over time.
That's a cool takeaway.
Nice takeaway for the finance nerds out there who care about efficiency.
You're the people's champ, Kyle.
One final thing I will share, because we did ask about AI in the report, so I've got to share some stats there. We hear AI is being blamed for companies, doing layoffs, reducing headcount. In the survey, about 2 in 3 companies did say that they reduced headcount due to AI. So whether it's like instead of hiring an extra 2 people, they hired 1, or maybe consolidated roles. We then asked, where did you reduce headcount due to AI by function? The biggest function was actually engineering. So 42% of folks in the survey said they reduced headcount in engineering because of AI. That seems to be where people are seeing the most value from these AI tools, whether it be Cursor, Claude Code, Lovable, Bolt, Replit. There's like a million of them, but GitHub Copilot, these seem to actually be helping out on productivity.
I do think it's like a huge distinction that people often don't make when they just gloss over and say, not as many jobs out there. Is it you're hiring less people than you were previously planning on hiring, like net new isn't increasing? Or is it that you're literally laying off or firing people? I just think those are 2 different stories.
Yeah. So, for some of these big companies like Amazon recently or Microsoft recently have announced layoffs of like 10% or whatever, and they've blamed it on AI. I think that's like a nice scapegoat for companies because it sounds better than saying something else. It makes them sound more innovative. The reality for most companies here is that they've kept their existing headcount pretty similar. They've cut back on new hiring, and they haven't backfilled as many roles when there is attrition. And so it's not necessarily layoffs, but over the course of a year or 2 years, if you're not backfilling as much and you've got some natural attrition and you've grown 30% per year, that ARR per employee like goes up pretty dramatically without having a layoff.
We shall converse about my sleepy little guys, my guys that need some coffee. Maybe your Nespresso is finally broken, because this is just something interesting that you read at 2 a.m.
Yeah, maybe we've just had too many pumpkin cream cold brews.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'm all hyped up on the sauce, but I come bearing good news for you, Kyle.
What's that?
It's not too late for us to be 1% founders at growth startups, according to this chart.
I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Okay, so welcome back to the show where we describe visual charts with words. And this chart shows that most top tier founders actually hit their stride in like the 40 to 42 range, not like the stories that you hear online about, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Evan Spiegel, Snapchat, basically any AI founder that was born after 9/11. What we're seeing is that the most successful founders really hit their stride and built something durable after their 40th birthday. So I just thought it was very different than the overall vibes of what you see.
And so the chart says 5 years after founding. Is this like how old people were when they founded the company, or 5 years after?
When they founded the company.
Okay, so the peak time to found a company is like 40. That apparently seems to be like the midlife crisis time. Like, I've hit 40 over the hill, better start a SaaS company. But then the peak time for actually being in the 1% is between 40 and 50 or so. So you got some time.
You got some time, and I think there's an element of your compounding experiences to get you there. Like if I look back at how many dog shit business ideas I've had up until this point, you hope that you learn something each time that you either try something that doesn't work, or you see somebody who does something awesome, or you're part of a company, not the one who came up with it, but a person who's an operator helping, or the guy behind the guy. And I think that's why people will get into their 40s and like, okay, I have enough requisite experience here to have found a way to apply it in a unique way.
I think another thing that comes to mind for me is that for startup founders and being in the top 1%, it takes a really long time to, make sure you have the right idea, vet it, build the product, get initial customers, get some traction, build the second product, hire a team, like build the third product. Like there's so much that goes into it, and it really is a marathon. So this like 996 idea of like, we just got to work harder than everyone else, that's gonna be great for getting some early traction, but not great for building a durable business. And someone that's maybe 22 isn't ready right now to sign up for the next 10 years of their life and just grinding on something. But by the time you're 40, 45, it's a problem space that you're really passionate about. And it's something that you could see yourself really building a long career based on.
And I feel like I kind of hit the cliche part at first about, now I have enough experiences. I think what doesn't come across in the chart, and which is often glossed over, is that founders are more successful when they're older. I think in a big way because their networks have matured to a point where they know the right people that they can hire to help them accomplish that dream. And they've also made relationships with investors who may fund them. So it's not just the experiences, but your network has matured to a point to be that force multiplier.
Plus, always helps to have a little bit of gray hair when you're selling someone a 6-figure deal.
Instead of having a midlife crisis and getting a Harley, you're like, I'm going to start a B2B enterprise MarTech company.
Hey, that sounds like something I would do.
Yeah. Midlife crisis, responsible for the most successful 40-year-old founders.
The new HubSpot.
Next up, it is something that one of you guys tried this week.
Something I tried this week. I'm curious, before I tell folks, I'm curious to ask CJ a question. When's the last time you've had your HVAC cleaned? Or do you have an HVAC system?
Whenever my father-in-law came over and said, "You're useless, let me get in there and do this the real way." I'm not like very handy, Kyle. This is very terrible. I don't think we've ever tried clean.
So I had, we moved into this place a couple of years ago, like got renovated it, right? And the air quality always seemed kind of bad. And then finally our HVAC guy goes like, "Well, why don't you have the vents cleaned?" We're like, "Oh, that we didn't really know that was like a thing we were supposed to do." So hired this group to do a duct cleaning, and they also sealed like where there were gaps. So they take pictures of the inside of your like vents, and that was disgusting, by the way.
No, I know what you're talking about now.
Nothing will scare you more than that.
It looks like this dark matter that's coming out of your ceiling that you've been breathing in for years.
Yeah, it's like plaster, dirt, and regret all combined into one. And so they took that, they sent it via Company Cam, which is like shout out to a PLG app for the trades. And they also sent us this report where the leakage from our ducts was equivalent to, I'm going to get this right, 96 basketballs of air outside of our conditioned space every minute. And they were able to bring that down from 96 basketballs to 21 basketballs of air, which still seems like a lot of air. Like I thought they sealed it, but it's still a lot.
That sounds like a director of procurement at a SaaS company. He's talking about cost avoidance. Like, we got 40% off MSRP. It's like, we weren't going to pay that anyway.
I saved 75 basketballs of air. What'd you try this week?
I just said I wasn't very handy. Definitely not a good candidate to get up on a ladder that goes pretty high up. And I'm in a flood zone, kind of close to the water.
Wait, how tall is your house?
It's pretty high up.
How many basketballs tall is it?
It's like 74 basketballs tall. But I was not going to get up there and hang the Christmas lights. And so we kept passing these signs. So this marketing work, they look like the signs you see for like 5K road race this weekend, of like when you pass like some area with grass in town. It said, "We'll hang your Christmas lights." And so these 3 guys came over and they hung up, like professionally put up lights and stuff. But it's funny because they did it at nighttime. I have no idea why they would want to get on a ladder at nighttime, but I don't think my neighbors saw them show up. So they probably think that I went like next level hanging these Christmas lights in incredibly dangerous spots on the corners of the roof. It looks great, but I do kind of feel like a bum for paying someone else to bring the holiday cheer to my house.
Did you provide the lights or did they bring those?
They bring it all, and they don't even use nails. They have some sort of voodoo magic that makes it just stay up there with clasps, but it goes like, it looks impeccable how it goes around the edges of the house, the gutters, like near the windows and stuff. It's It's pretty next level.
How much does this kind of thing cost?
So it's funny you bring this up because I almost put it into the pricing section, pricing in the real world.
Like, is it per square foot? Is it per light? Like, what are we talking here?
They send you a proposal. I think and I don't think it's per light. I think it seemed like they had 3 packages and we took like the middle one. And I think it was $1,800 for them to put it up and take it down.
What?
Well, mind you, I don't have to pay for any of the materials and that covers the labor.
I've got to
as well.
start a services business with like you as my only customer. This is the 1% company I'm going to found.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies probably getting the best of me right now with anything around the house. I'm your guy.
Kids
I'm like,
play
that sounds reasonable.
zone, snow plowing. Like, I love this. I keep seeing the equivalent for me of the signs I keep seeing there are places that will put like different decorations outside of your house, but not like Christmas lights, but like they'll do squashes and pumpkins. So it's like a fall scene, and then they'll replace that with a winter scene. And it's basically just your like steps or your front stoop, because I live in the city. And so I think they have a similar pricing model, but it's a subscription where they like just swap things in and out a certain number of times a year. I'm thinking about that, but not if it's going to cost me $1,800.
I think it's worth it just for the level of risk these guys had to take. They hung a wreath in an area of the house that like you would have to take a helicopter to get to. Not that the house is big or anything, but it's like there's nothing near it to climb onto and there's no window near it. So I have no idea how they did it, but I'm glad I was not up on that ladder.
So you're going to get like mad props from your neighbors for how good your house looks.
Oh yeah.
I guess their retention play is if it looks so good and you get all these compliments from your neighbors, you're going to be like fully expected to do that every year, and you're not going to be able to replicate it. So like that's their lock-in. I think we got to put photos of your house on this YouTube video.
I don't know about that, man. Then people will find out.
I want to see what this wreath looks like.
They'll figure out that I'm living in a van down by the river.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe. Give us 5 stars or hit like. The algorithm overlords thank you. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.